Hello and welcome to Verified First's exclusive series, Sales Bites, where we bring in sales experts to discuss current challenges and provide actionable solutions to sales professionals at every level. In today's episode, we'll hear from WedgeHR CEO, Matt Baxter, about how to understand and use your position with customers to create win-win situations. Let's get started. Matt, thanks so much for joining us today. Can you share with us a little bit about your experience in sales and maybe a bit about what your current role at WedgeHR looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. My initial learning of sales was door to door knocking to try to mow people's lawns when I was in middle school and high school. So I literally had the door to door sales. That evolved to be, obviously now we're in the HR industry, and Wedge is a video interviewing platform. So we sell directly to HR departments. We also do a lot of channel partner sales as well too. So we learned pretty early on some hiccups or barriers that we had of selling our product to HR departments, which is really fascinating. Things like budgets, things like, hey, it doesn't integrate with our technology, things like we don't know where it fits in our system. So that really caused us early on to have to start asking a lot more questions throughout the hiring, throughout the sales process when we're trying to sell to HR and hiring departments as well too. So my role at Wedge obviously is to set the vision, hire great people, and then I work a lot with partnerships as well too, which has been an absolute blast.
And then as we go into creating win-win situations, it's very interesting, especially coming out of COVID, coming out of the pandemic. The world has changed, some for good, some for worse, but we're facing a new situation, a new perspective on life, on the talent acquisition space, on human resources, and the role that they play within an organization, and really what that looks like for people across the board. So for WedgeHR, what does creating a win-win situation look like?
So as an entrepreneur, when you first start a company, you're looking to sell your service to anybody to kind of stay alive. And then once you start to grow, you start to better understand who your customers are, who you service. So again, I think it starts back to the conversation around what are the needs of our customers. So the customer that has that fits in this parameter with this need, with this hiring, with this focus, this position, whatever it may be, those are the people we can walk in the door and say, hey, here's the proven track record, and here how honestly in good business we can come along and help you and assist you in these various different areas. We might not be this, we might not be that, but we can service you here and help you here. So I think win-win scenarios are basically when two people come together, two products come together, two services come together, where somebody has a need, somebody fills that need, and it's actually an honest transaction. So that's what's really fun is you start to gain customers that it's like, we're very comfortable paying what we're paying. We're very happy using what we're using, and we love you guys as customers. This is great. That's a win-win-win all around. We're in a unique spot, and I think we've talked about this in the past, where we do a lot of channel partnership work. So our tool would be integrated in a broader solution like an applicant tracking system. So it's a unique kind of win-win-win solution that the ATS wants to service their clients the best possible, keep them as customers, retention, and that's remarkably important. The end customer wants additional services to help make their life easier. So we can come alongside, partner with the ATS, so to service the end customer. The ATS may make a little bit of money off of our transaction, we get more customers. So that's even further where it gets really fun is you get a win-win-win situation. Everybody grows, everybody's happy, and there's the focus. And there's sometimes we just may not be able to help, and that's okay. That's something that I had to drop my ego a little bit on through the years of like, we're not going to service everybody. I hope we do. I wish we did, but we're not. And so why don't we focus on who we really can and who we can really help? And I think that changes things.
Absolutely. And I think it's so crucial that you brought up not just the win-win situation between yourself and the end user, but a win-win-win situation where you are expanding your field of focus and influence to channel partners, understanding who else in our space could provide a good complement to the service that we already offer. Right. And that is bi-directional in terms of the influence that is there and the benefit that's there. And really talking about how that helps develop stickiness, client stickiness in the long run, and how it's a win-win-win for the end user, for yourself and your company, and then also your channel partner, because the more benefits that you incorporate into that overall solution, the end user is going to say, gosh, I'm in heaven. I don't know. I can't imagine ever leaving this. I've got everything I need.
Can I get that quoted? I like that. We need that somewhere.
But it's so true that once you have a client who is happy with the services and client support and overall benefits that are offered through these partnerships, I mean, you're going to develop more business just through word of mouth with satisfied customers who want to share, like, this is an awesome solution. I need to get this out there.
There's
So
nothing better than a referral and somebody who's a happy customer, not afraid to make an introduction. There's nothing better.
absolutely. I know we touched on this a little bit before, but maybe taking a deeper dive into it. Why is understanding your customer a key and crucial piece of building an overall and really strategic long-term win-win strategy?
Yeah, so in our circumstance, we work in the small to medium-sized business space. So let's say 100 to 1,000 is generally where we live. So we, for example, have a middle market manufacturing company that uses our product. And their biggest benefit of using our solution would be we help reduce their time to fill from 60 to 32 days, right? So where we help them with sales roles, manufacturing roles, kind of factory line working roles, there's a lot of mid-market manufacturing companies out there. So if we can come in and say we service them appropriately, we help them hire, we reduce their time to fill, we populate an ROI for them. There's this, and that we did for them. We can then walk in the door to the other 10,000 middle market manufacturing companies in the US and say, here's how we help them, and here's how we potentially could help you if you have these similar type needs. A lot of times when you have a response like that, they're like, yeah, ooh, tell me more about that, or I would like to learn more. Actually, that's exactly what I just said. I just got done looking at 13,000 different resumes. I didn't know who to pick. Those are the type of sound bites that if you can walk in qualified and say, this is where we service and this is who we can help, that's where I think just helps you scale and multiply your business as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I love that you place not the majority of the focus, but a focus around the key differentiators of your business, looking at the overall market, knowing that there's huge, immense saturation going on, looking at it from, the blue ocean strategy piece of it of, okay, I know that the market is incredibly saturated. We're not the only provider with this type of solution, but what do our competitors possess that we actually do better at, or maybe we possess something that they haven't even touched on yet?
Exactly.
So how can we capitalize on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. And so, one really interesting piece is that if you go head to head with a competitor, people will a lot of times go in and have certain asks that they want, right? They'll want this feature, that feature, to do this, to do that. And it's interesting when they actually pan out and start using the product. So let's say, heaven forbid, somebody went with one of our competitors. Of course, it never happens, right? No, there's some awesome other companies in the industry. It's fantastic. So, but occasionally what we'll see is somebody will choose another vendor. All the things that they said during the sales pitch that they wanted weren't actually as important as they thought, right? So when they actually came around to it, we want to be very feature rich and feature heavy. So we want this product, this product, this product, this product. And then when they actually use it, they're like, well, it's super clunky and complicated. Well, maybe that's a byproduct. I'm not saying that there's not complex products out there that are also easy to use, but an interesting trade-off is that if you want all these different features, the product software may be a little bit more complex or clunky. Therefore, you may want to go with a feature light solution that's easier to use, maybe not has everything, but that's where I just think it's an interesting sales conversation that when you walk in trying to sell these things, people be like, I like that, I like that, I like that, but do they actually use all those things? That's what you need to be constantly looking at, not only of future customers, but companies that are actually happy and satisfied with your product. What do they like about it? And that's where you go, fight toe to toe with your competitor and say, this is what all of our companies like about us, proven, tried and true. They use it all the time, and here's how we beat them. That's a very different sale than let me tell you all the different sales, all the different product features that we have. That's very different. So hopefully that's a little helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, as you were talking about that, I couldn't help but think of, let's say you're in a new town and looking for a gym to join, and you look at, there's this smaller gym that's a lot less expensive, and they really just have a treadmill and a couple of different items. But then there's this bigger gym with indoor pool, outdoor pool, indoor track, all of these things. Just like, that's awesome. Yeah, I'll pay 500% more a month to go to that gym. But when it comes down to it, and when you actually go, you're like, I really only use the treadmill and maybe a couple of free weights.
Exactly.
And when it comes down to it, understanding oh, these are the things that really matter to me. And from an organizational standpoint, these are the solutions or the features that we actually use on a day-to-day basis. So those are important. And I love that you emphasize really talking with the customer and understanding, okay, so cool, we have all of these offerings. What do you actually use? What's important to you now that you've spent a little bit of time in our platform, in our solution? What do you use the most? And how can we take that and make it the best possible solution for you?
That's right. And to take that analogy one step further, you think about a small gym versus a massive gym. Some people just want to walk into the gym and be known by a couple of the employees. When I walk in, hey Matt, how you doing? That may be just as important to me as all the, everything else. Same thing. I may want to, company versus company A versus company B. You may just want to be able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody, a part of that organization. That may be a huge unspoken truth that's where I think you can win a lot of business over as well too, is if you know the person's name, right? And the person's, you know each other. We live in the software world and scaling world, but there's nothing different than kind of knowing people and making a face-to-face communication. I think is huge too. So.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. So given, understanding features, understanding the customer, not just to win their business, but to keep their business, what tools and resources can sales execs use, not just to create, but continuously improve their win-win strategy?
Yeah, and I hate to be boring on this one, but again, pick up the phone, call them, email them, say, hey, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? We're here to improve. And some improvements you may not be able to make, but at least hearing what they are, so that when you go to sell to somebody new, you're not selling to something, that you thought you had that you don't. I mean, certainly having conversations with people all the time of just saying, help me understand better. How are you using this? What do you like? What are other tools that you're doing? What did this replace? What didn't this replace? We set out a customer survey, and we had like 85%, 90% of our customers respond back, which is huge. I mean, it was like a really insightful survey, and it was remarkable how like 70% of what we thought we did right, they were happy. Like, meaning we were correct in our hypothesis. The other 30% of how it was being used, we had no idea. Somebody was like, well, we didn't even use an ATS. We only used Wedge. And it was like, well, let's talk about that further. And some people said, we didn't even look at resumes. We only looked at the video before we hired somebody. Well, let's talk about that further. And it just, more and more circumstances came out to be, okay, so we, our 75 to 80% core, we know how they use it, how we sold it to them. They're happy, they're satisfied. But then the other 15 to 20 to 30% edge cases, let's go pick up the phone and call them, figure out how can we service them better. Also, who else is like you? Because that's an interesting circumstance as well too. So I mean, I hate to say it, but I think getting to know your customers, I think, takes effort. It takes work. It's not just, is there anything you need today? No. It's saying, start by leading with some questions. You get to learn a lot more. You get to understand, and then you build a relationship where if something goes wrong, they'll call you, not say, hey, we're done. We're done with this business, but I like you enough that I want to help you and figure out how we can do this better. So I think that's important too.
Yeah, that's so true. And kind of the common theme as you were explaining that stood out to me is that people innately want to feel known
and 100%.
heard and valued. And so that's
what's the famous quote? Like your favorite word in the definition or in a dictionary is your own name.
Absolutely, and it's true. People,
so true.
At the end of the day, they're thinking about how does this benefit me, or how can I improve, or whatever it is. But when a business goes out of their way, especially a larger business goes out of their way to know their clients, to know their prospects, and really ask meaningful questions, is so crucial to the longevity of that relationship.
That's
and
right.
even initiating positive referrals and word of mouth opportunities, and case studies tie into that as well. When you work with a customer and, from that survey that you said you guys had executed and got back that information of, oh, wow, 70% really indicated that this was a strong solution or feature within our platform. Cool, that's exactly on par with what we had anticipated. So forming a case study around that, selecting one or two, maybe three different instances or clients to go off of and say, what's your experience? I want to deep dive into that. And then actually, building that out and giving it to other clients or even prospects for them to go, oh, think about it as a submarine radar. There's a bunch of pings going off and they're like, I identify with 90% of this.
Yep.
I absolutely want to go with a solution that I feel will understand my needs, not just from an organizational standpoint, but from a personal standpoint as well. That those
That's
are
right.
things that are important.
Yep.
Sure. How has emerging technology contributed to the successful execution of a win-win strategy? Do you feel like it has? Do you feel like even though technology is emerging and becoming more and more prevalent in today's society, do you feel like emerging technology has actually helped with the win-win execution, or do you feel like in some ways it might have even hurt people?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we kind of are an emerging technology in the sense that like video interviewing, and specifically like one-way video interviewing, hasn't been that popular in the last 10 years. And I mean, it was first around about 12 to 14 years ago, and then started to get some traction. Then COVID kind of made it hockey stick, right? So, in that sense, we are, but I'll refer to it more in the context of like emerging technology when it comes to how we live in a end customer's suite, right? So, like one of the coolest things ever is the amount of investments going into human capital, right? So from applicant tracking systems, background check companies, assessment providers, video interviewing, management side, everything. There's a lot of money being invested both from companies and from, institutional investment. I think that in itself is huge, right? So, there's very few companies with more than 50 employees that don't have an applicant tracking system. That in and of itself is showing that technology is being adopted, is being accepted, and then is being pushed further and further forward. We're going to go through another new cycle of this is the bright, shiny technology that a lot of people are going to start to implement. Boom, boom, boom. Those things are starting to happen. So, I think in one sense, I think it's the coolest thing ever. I think occasionally you can get a little bit like software can solve everything type attitude, right? And just because you bought this bright shiny new ATS doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have all the perfect candidates. It may require a little bit of work. I think our ATS partners are phenomenal and they kick ass at what they do, but you might have to put a little bit of work in. You might still have to interview people. You might have to look at a video interview. You might have to throw a background check, whatever it is. But I just think I think trying to solve everything with software and just throwing a dart at it and expecting it to stick is not always the best approach, but some thoughtful intentionality of saying this is what we're doing manually and there's software out there that can solve that is where I think software and humanity pair really, really well together.
Yeah, I love that you take on a hybrid approach of, looking at WedgeHR itself as an emerging technology and utilizing the human condition of wanting to be known and valued and heard by people. So knowing that that is the case, that hasn't changed in the last few thousand years, and it's not likely to change in the next few thousand years. So understanding that people want to feel known and heard, but also using technology to your advantage to supplement those things that maybe humans can't do, can't process. And so identifying areas or challenges for improvement and then applying technology to that so that you can clear up bandwidth and really apply technology in a way that's going to be beneficial and a positive supplement to what already exists. So definitely love and appreciate that standpoint. Well, it looks like we are at the end of our time for today's episode of Sales Bites. Thank you so much again, Matt, for joining us. You truly brought some valuable insights to the table. For those watching, thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time.